I think part of our reason for naming ourselves Take A Daytrip was really, we always wanted to have a constant reminder that our biggest goal in life was to just see the world through music. We both met at the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music at NYU back in 2011.
We both came from kind of small towns. We both kind of connected as like on just trying to do like everything, you know, going to sneaking in clubs and going to Brooklyn and doing all these different things and trying to sneak in the studio. So I think that's what kind of like sparked our friendship, because we're like, all right, like we could just stay in the dorm and hang out, but what if we didn't? What if we just kind of went everywhere?
Turn up a little bit. I like that.
Yeah, I like that snare.
Yeah.
Ready? I'm doing it with the filter. I kind of like that. Like a little bit of the chaos is cool. That's cool.
I think when we first started working together, we were lucky enough to meet our friend Mel DeBarge, and he had collected a bunch of vintage synths. And it was our first opportunity, you know, being able to create with each other where we weren't passing the laptop back and forth and like, oh, like my idea's done, like here you go. Okay, Dan, let's try something, you know. I think that for the first time allowed us to, you know, get on two separate keyboards and really like jam for the first time. Our process now, both me and him are able to just come up with ideas from scratch that can have like a bass part, a lead line, some chords, all that like all in one, just off of just us jamming, you know, one take. We look at Moog instruments as like the core of like a lot of our bass sounds. We look at a lot of things from Dave Smith for lead sounds and chords and things like that. Even just the way that we arrange our keyboards. Our Sub-Fatty and our Voyager are in the middle of synths that are mainly for chords and like lead sounds. So it allows us to sometimes, you know, play one instrument and then on the bass, like we're able to play with another hand.
So it's all just like intuition, like turn on this keyboard, this is the sound I want to get. You know, this one does this. If I want this, I'm going to go walk over in this direction.
Yeah, it's a hive mind. So this is kind of a little bit of our process of how we just make things from scratch.
We pretty much just throw a bunch of ideas at the wall and then reduce from there.
Yeah, even when you look at our session, it's like we have many tracks that are muted. And
every keyboard is routed to a different track, and we can record all the tracks at the same time or different times. So we start with the first sound that we put down, which was this kind of distorted 808 bass sound from the Prophet X.
And the Prophet X, to us, might be our most versatile keyboard. You know, it has a lot of live sounds from like pianos to organs, also has a lot of synth sounds, like kind of those classic Dave Smiths, you know, in general. We started messing around with bass and drums.
But starting with bass is usually good for us because it establishes like a little bit of the rhythm, a little bit of the melody, the chord progression. Sometimes the bass is the lead melody. Sometimes it's just outlining what the chord progression will be.
In this instance, I'll play this with the main bass sound and all the drums that we put down. Sometimes we record things in and then, you know, throw them through halftime or throw RC20. And like in this case, we put Effectrix just to give it like a little bit of, you know, an extra rhythmic element in the sound.
Because like marimba is such a organic sound, and then glitching it up a little bit is like kind of bending the context of it. Yeah. So this is that sound. So this is what's doing the glitch, the Effectrix.
So we threw it through halftime just to, you know, mess around with different combinations of what it could be, but this was the original. And through halftime. And with with everything.
So yeah, those are like pretty much the core elements, I would say, that everything's based around, because there's like too many different melodic things going on at the same time, like lead lines that pull your attention, then your attention gets pulled in like too many directions.
The way that we look at making beats, to us, the final instrument is always the vocalist. So we always want to carve that space for what the final part to the equation is always going to be. I'd say even before that, with the parts that we did have between the drums, the lead mellotron sound, and that Prophet X bass. From there, then we're kind of auditioning different parts to make different sections. So usually when we're making beats, we're really thinking verse, pre-chorus, chorus, post-chorus.
But usually like the main section is the chorus, and then everything is just reduced from there. So these are really just supporting pieces to those core elements. So there are these chords from the Prophet X, just following the chord progression that the bass outlined. And we like to do this with the piano a lot, that we've done in like a ton of songs, just a rhythmic, melodic element that kind of is just outlining the root or like a fifth or a third.
And usually that living within a higher frequency as well.
A lot of times in pre-choruses, we'll do something that's a little bit more held out so that it feels like the song kind of slows down a little bit in the pre-chorus. And then we take it out for the chorus so it feels like faster in comparison. So this is the held out instrument. So it's like a Rhodes swirly sound from the Nord.
And then to ground that even more, just following essentially what that Rhodes sound from the Nord is doing, we just layered it with a little bass just to fill up the bottom frequency.
Yeah. So usually we use either the Voyager or the Sub-Fatty for bass sounds. And when there are things that are layered on top of the bass, we typically bring the filter down so that it leaves more space on top for the other instruments to have like their own space. So this Voyager patch has the filter pretty much all the way down. So it's just low frequencies and all the highs are filtered out.
I think one of our go-tos is definitely the Good Hertz collection, testing out different presets and, fine-tuning those presets to really make sense for what we're envisioning in our mind.
So usually in a chorus, we like to like pitch things up a little bit, and it feels like the spectrum of what you expected was the highest frequency gets established in the pre-chorus and the verse, and then the chorus just takes it like another step. It's like a surprise frequency that comes in the chorus. So really it's just, the parts that we had coming from the verse and the pre-chorus, and then just this pitched up.
And it's really light things. It's like light things that you don't necessarily hear, but it's things that you feel.
This is usually like where we'll stop as like a template of what the final song can be. So it's not doing too much in any specific section. Then once the artist is there, then it gives us a better idea of what we can do next. The way that musicianship works within our production process is to specifically pinpoint like an extremely strong emotion and saying like, we want to make this moment feel like this. So how do we do that instead of it being like more of a guess and check and saying like, does this feel like this? Does this feel like this? You know, we're such close friends with a lot of people that we work with that we could kind of say like, all right, well today Nas is kind of feeling like this. How do we back up that emotion with certain intervals? If it's kind of scary, it might be a minor second. It's like the interval that's in Jaws. And it's just like it rubs in like a way that kind of makes you a little bit uncomfortable, but sometimes that's the specific thing that we're trying to go after. But
playing within frequency and knowing what high end, mid range, and low end really does for a person's soul. We don't just study the music, but we study everything around the music. So one thing that we really study is how people dance to music around the world. Using UK as an example, most of the music that they grew up on, garage music, different types of grime music, and the tempos that they grew up on, a lot of them nod on the beat backwards.
Yeah, we're like, what?
You know, so, okay, if we're gonna make something for the UK, like, they need to bounce and bob their head like this. We're in the United States, we're used to, you know, going like this, so we're used to downbeats. And the same thing goes if we're making, you know, Afro beats, West Coast music, Latin music, like things that live within the same tempo, but drums are put in certain places to create different dance moves. Like even the way that we made Scoop on Lil Nas X's album, we made that like thinking about TikTok and thinking about how people are gonna dance to that 808 pattern and things like that.
Working on Montero was definitely the biggest task probably of our lives up to this point. We just by chance happened to be Nas's first session, and the first session that we do becomes like a hit, like one of our biggest hits. So we're like, okay, this is cool.
And that was Panini.
Yeah, that was Panini. And one night he called and he's like, I want you guys to executive produce my debut album. And we're like, of course, like we love to. But you know, in our perspective is like to executive produce an album, we just kind of all got together and thought about how to collectively inspire ourselves to really make the things come together.
We really learned patience in a different way. Call Me By Your Name is a song that took months to make, like 6-8 months, like from the day it was created to the, you know, the very last day.
Industry Baby was a year.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much every song on the album, like, took a long time to make. That was new for every single person, a part of the process of just really going back in on records, revisiting records, having ideas, changing things up, switching out the 808s last minute sometimes. I think once we locked in and really started seeing eye to eye with each other of just the type of music that we wanted to create for the world and the type of message that we wanted to put out to the world, that's when things really started making sense. The most important thing about us sharing our process is really showing the world that this is possible and that it's something that anyone can really do if they put their mind to it. And you know, even to go a step further than that, our biggest goal is to really show people of color that they can achieve anything they want, especially in this creative field.
I would definitely say that the best ideas should be open source.
Music unites us by showing us that dreams within art, music, so many different things, it's all achievable and it's all possible.